Yeah. And who, by the way, this is some other related question now that I still have you here. Who should I talk about regarding this energy dimension? Because I really want to learn more about this. Do you have some recommendations, or who should maybe the chat read about, or myself? Like, who are the?
I mean, it really depends. You see, this is again like the energy, like realistic voices on the energy issue are few and far between because of the pressure to conform to the consensus on energy. So, I mean, who's good on it? Like any practitioner, anyone actually physically trading or dealing in energy, the sad thing is that the big sort of commodity traders are so conscious of their PR that that they also have like we were talking about journalism. There's a disconnect between what they do and what their philosophy is, and this is this kind of corporate virtue signaling is incredibly damaging for the economy, because corporations that are supposedly profit, they're supposed to be profit maximizing in their fields, but they're not profit maximizing because they're doing things for virtuous reasons. But as a result, that creates a gap in the economy, right? So, or it creates a sort of wishful thinking effect where they think, oh, well, as long as we're virtuous enough, then we can manifest, the outcomes that we desire, irrespective of what the reality is. And reality is really quite, you can't, it knocks on the door and goes, hello, I'm here, I'm a gas, you said you'd have like net zero, it'd be lovely, and we'd have wind farms, but actually, look, I'm the gas deficit and I'm knocking on your door. People who are upfront about that are few and far between. I've spoken to quite a lot of consultants on it, and some of them are very high level, very well regarded in the industry. And they're scared to talk because they will be disparaged because it's such an unpopular perspective. I mean, now, thanks to the Russia situation, in some ways, there is a bit more realism coming into play. And I've heard suddenly a lot of kind of revisionism from a few people in terms of how they feel about the gas and net zero situation. I do see that happening now, but it's few and far between. I think you've got voices like Michael Schellenberger, who has been saying this for years, but he was dismissed as a weirdo and a conspiracy theorist. Again, not a conspiracy, but I mean, he came from the Green movement, and his basic spiel, I thought he was very convincing, frankly. But he was one of the voices that it was challenging to platform on any kind of like serious publication, because he was saying what people didn't want to hear, which is that renewables are not there yet. We can't do the transition because the technology hasn't arrived yet. And people don't want to hear that, so they shut him down. And it's very it's very weird. Whereas I want to hear those voices and I want to platform them so that we can find the solutions to the problems, not just ignore them.
Yeah, you're really making me want to platform this person on the Money and Macro channel, Izabella.
Well, Michael Schellenberger is great. I did interview him, but like in the end, we didn't run the podcast, so I ended up doing it somewhere else. But he was great. He's got I think he's got a column in, I think maybe it's Forbes or Fortune, I can't remember. But he's also independent, and he did the Joe Rogan interview not long ago. So.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's a big platform. I'll definitely look up that podcast then. So I also see a lot of people in the chat sort of going on about nuclear, and that also ties into something that I was myself thinking, like, can't we just build a ton of power plants? Like, I know the political will isn't there, but can't we just do that? Like build a massive amount of nuclear power plants? And I know it takes a while, but like theoretically.
Yeah, we can and we should. And that's basically what Michael Schellenberger is saying.
Okay.
But there is no political will. To the contrary, there is this weird stigma with nuclear, which is that it's incredibly dangerous and it's not green, and therefore we can't do it. When actually, but there is so much more evolution in the technology of nuclear, and there are micro nuclear plants and really interesting innovations, and yet there is this kind of blanket perspective. Michael Schellenberger says it's because it arises from the kind of green lobby being quite anti-nuke and lefty, and so they see nukes as sort of like war hawky and very neocon, and therefore they don't want to be seen recommending nukes in any capacity, even in a power generating sense. But like again, nuclear is at the heart of the Ukraine story. Like if you look at what's going on in Ukraine, the Ukrainian nationalists they want to get their autonomy back by basically redeveloping all their nuclear facilities, and they do have active nuclear facilities in Ukraine already. But they want to really invest in more of them. And obviously, Chernobyl is also in Ukraine,
which was just under siege or captured or something. I read.
Yes. Exactly. So, but Chernobyl, in a weird way, is also the thing that like made nuclear completely not palatable. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, Chernobyl didn't kill that many people. I'm not saying every life lost is awful. Don't get me wrong.
No.
And there were terrible repercussions for the environment. But in some ways, in terms of global tragedies, it wasn't the biggest in the world, but it's become the poster child of why you can't do nuclear.
Yeah.
And the Netflix documentary, when I talked to some of the nuclear specialists, they were very upset with that Netflix thing because they thought it really kind of mischaracterized the threats from nuclear.
Was that was it a proper documentary, or was it like the drama series?
Yeah, it was a drama series. Oh, yeah, it was really good.
I watched it. It made me physically sick, so I can totally understand how people then, get antagonized against nuclear.
Yeah, and I think it was, according to nuclear experts I talked to, mischaracterizing a lot of the issues.
Yeah, but and then weirdly enough, like in the same spirit, Fukushima is even weirder, right? Like that was a super limited disaster, and it made Germany just switch off all of its power plants.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Fukushima. I mean, Fukushima was a tragedy, but I think it weirdly ended up being quite stimulative for the Japanese economy, if I recall, as well. So in terms of growth, after the tragedy, it helped to. I think there was a bit of obviously Japan's had a massive long-term issue with growth, but there was a sort of post-Fukushima boost
that had to do with the rebuilding because of the tsunami damage more than the power plant.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but it's all kind of connected in the sense of the tsunami and the Fukushima, that era anyway. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Fukushima was. I remember when it happened, everyone was so fearful that it would travel, and I'm not trying to downplay nuclear risks. They're obviously there, but I think most of the power plants we have are so old nowadays that Jonathan Ford did an excellent piece in the FT about the challenges of building a nuclear plant and how it takes 10 to 15 years to build a proper one, and to decommission them as well takes even longer sometimes. So do they ever really get decommissioned? Obviously the nuclear waste issue is a big problem, but yeah, that's I'm wittering, so I'm going to shut up.
Yeah, and this maybe I could just round it off by just saying that this brings me to the only problem that I do have with it. So I just recently moved to Belgium, and here we have, I think, 3 major nuclear power plants, but they're not properly maintaining them. They keep shutting off, and they're not building new ones, but they're also keeping these open. And this is the only thing that I do find difficult about this debate, because then, I sort of side with the Greens on this issue sometimes, because not maintaining one and keeping it open is also not good. Right? Just build new ones.
Yeah, but I think you've obviously got to maintain them. I don't know enough about I can't really comment because I don't know about it, but it strikes me as part of the kind of greater move away from nukes and coal, and a lot of these assets have become unloved because of this false narrative, in my opinion, that the new renewable technology is now capable of taking over, and I'm just not convinced it is. But based on the statistics, based on the costs, based on the actual recycling of the renewables themselves, just in terms of the economics, in terms of the land use, the battery power, the intermittency issue, These are all massive constraints. They work, renewables work really well in an isolated capacity. Like if you're like a little village in the middle of Africa and you get a nice solar panel, it's great. It works. It's brilliant. But that is completely different to powering like a massive urban, environment where you need constant, reliable and accessible energy. And you don't have the space necessarily for the solar panels. So you need to the other issue with renewables is also the cost of transmission, which hasn't been thought through properly either. So, but I'm generalizing massively, and I shouldn't talk about things without researching them. I mean, I have researched it, but I haven't recently looked at it, so I don't want to.
Yeah, no, but I think
any disinfo.
The people who watch the stream are rather intelligent. After all, they subscribe to the Money Macro channel, but so I think they can see through that. I wouldn't worry about that.